Before you could speak, before you could walk, before you even knew your own name, something already decided what you'd believe about yourself. Not your parents, not your school, something older than that. There's a voice in your head right now, the one narrating your limits, the one telling you what you deserve, what you're capable of, how much time you have left. You've probably never questioned where that voice came from. I think I know. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. There's an old idea, buried in Gnostic texts, in Hermetic teachings, in mystery schools that operated in near total secrecy for centuries, that says none of us arrive here clean. We arrive preloaded, written on by something the old teachers called the Demiurge. And according to that idea, it installed 9 lies into you. Lies so deeply wired, you've mistaken them for your own personality. You've believed at least 6 of them today. I mean that literally. Stay with me. By the end of this, you'll start asking, is that actually me talking? Or is that the program? So who, or what, are we actually dealing with? The word comes from Greek philosophy, but it was the Gnostics who really shaped it. In their cosmology, the Demiurge isn't the ultimate source of everything. It's a lesser architect, a craftsman who built the material world, then convinced everyone inside it that his creation was the only reality that existed. Valentinus, one of the most influential teachers in early Gnostic Christianity, taught something that still gives me chills. He said the material world isn't evil, it's incomplete. A copy, a shadow of something higher, built by a being who trapped consciousness inside that shadow and called it home. I don't think this is just an old myth. I think it's a psychological technology, a way of describing something real. Every one of us wakes up inside a story we didn't write, playing a character we didn't fully choose, following rules we never agreed to. Whether the Demiurge is a literal entity or a symbol for the conditioning force shaping every mind on this planet, honestly doesn't matter. The lies are identical either way. Let's start with the first one. The one every other lie is built on top of. You are alone in there, sealed inside your skull, looking out at a world of other people sealed inside theirs, and none of you can ever really touch. That's the first lie, separation. Here's why I think it's the master lie. If you believe you're separate, you'll spend your life closing a gap that was never actually there. You'll chase connection like it's scarce. You'll compete instead of collaborate. You'll compare your life to someone else's, because deep down you believe you're in a different boat than them, rowing alone. The mystics taught the opposite. Consciousness isn't divided into billions of separate sparks. It's one field, wearing billions of masks. You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the ocean, experiencing itself as a drop. I believe loneliness, at its root, isn't about missing people. It's about forgetting what you actually are. But separation isn't the only lie doing damage. There's a second one working right alongside it. Harder to see, because it's not just in your mind. It's in your mirror. You are not your body. I know how that sounds, because everything about your life screams the opposite. You feel hunger in a body. You feel pain in a body. You watch it age, and some quiet part of you panics every time. That's the second lie, total identification with the flesh. Across nearly every esoteric tradition, Gnostic, Hermetic, Vedic, the body gets described the same way. As a garment. Something consciousness puts on, not something consciousness is. But the programming wants you fused to that coat completely, because a being who thinks it is the body will spend its whole existence terrified of losing it. It'll chase vanity. It'll make decisions from fear of death instead of love of life. I've watched this lie ruin people slowly, through decades of quiet body anxiety nobody ever names out loud. You're the awareness wearing the body, not the body wearing awareness. The next lie moves even faster than this one, and it's the one stealing your days without you noticing. You're running out of time. Feel that low hum of urgency, sitting under almost every decision you make. That's the third lie, and it might be the most exhausting one on this list. Linear time, life as a straight line hurtling toward an ending, creates permanent background panic. Rush. Achieve. You're behind. Everyone else is ahead. I don't think that clock is as real as it feels. Several mystical traditions describe time as closer to a spiral than a line, cycles folding back into themselves. Try telling that to your nervous system at 11 p.m. though. I've felt this one personally more than almost any lie here. There was a stretch of my life where I was so obsessed with catching up, I barely lived a single day I was actually in. The program wants you rushed, because a rushed mind never stops to question anything. It just runs. And underneath that constant hurry sits a wound even deeper. One so personal, most people carry it their whole lives without saying it out loud. You are not enough. Say that sentence and watch how fast something in your chest tightens. Not smart enough, not successful enough, not lovable enough. The flavor changes, the root stays identical. A belief that you arrived here with a deficit, that you have to earn the right to simply exist. Here's the part that makes me genuinely angry. This lie doesn't just sit quietly anymore. It gets sold back to you. Every ad, every algorithm is engineered to widen that exact gap, then hand you a product that promises to fix it. The old teachers called this the wound of insufficiency, and taught it was never true. Consciousness, at its source, isn't missing anything. It's already whole, before it does a single thing to prove itself. But that belief, that you must prove your worth, is exactly what keeps you small and endlessly striving. Which brings us to the lie underneath all of that waiting. And this one, I need to tell you as a story first, because I lived a version of it myself. I remember sitting on the floor of an apartment I couldn't really afford, at 2 in the morning, staring at a ceiling fan going around and around. Nothing dramatic had happened that day. That was almost the worst part. Just an ordinary Tuesday, and I remember thinking, with total certainty, nothing I do actually changes anything. I felt like a passenger in my own life, like the plot was already written, and I was just along for the ride. That feeling has a name. The fifth lie: powerlessness. You were taught, early and repeatedly, that you don't create your reality. You just react to whatever it hands you. Wait for the right moment. Wait for permission. Wait for someone to save you. I think this lie does the most damage of all 9, because it doesn't just distort how you see yourself, it paralyzes you. A being that believes it's powerless will never test its own power. The hidden teachings say the opposite boldly. Consciousness isn't a passenger inside reality. It's the thing generating reality, moment to moment, whether you're aware of it or not. The Demiurge didn't just build the cage. He convinced the prisoner the door was welded shut, when the whole time, it was only ever closed. I didn't leave that floor because someone rescued me. I left because something in me finally refused to believe the story I'd been told about my own powerlessness. We're at the bottom now. From here, everything turns upward, starting with the lie that convinces you the exit has to come from someone else. You keep waiting for someone to save you. A relationship, a mentor, a guru, a version of yourself that only exists once someone else validates it. That's the sixth lie, and I dislike this one more than most because I've watched it hollow people out. There's a whole industry now that profits from this exact wound, turning spiritual seeking into another form of waiting. By this course, follow this teacher. Wait for enlightenment to be handed to you. I think that's a trap dressed up as a shortcut. The old mystery schools were clear, even when it wasn't popular. No external figure can hand you your own awakening. A teacher can point. A teacher can't walk the road for you. The rescue you're waiting for isn't coming from outside, because it was never designed to. The programming depends on you staying oriented outward, always looking for the next person, the next authority to hand you permission to be whole. And that outward orientation feeds directly into the next lie, one that convinces you that you don't even deserve to be saved in the first place. You did something wrong. You don't even know what, but somewhere inside, there's a quiet, persistent sense that you owe a debt you can't name. That's the seventh lie: inherited guilt. The belief that your existence itself needs an apology. This isn't about any single doctrine. It shows up across nearly every culture, independent of how anyone was raised. The sense that you have to earn your right to take up space. That joy needs justifying. That rest has to be deserved. The esoteric teachings frame it more kindly. Consciousness entering matter isn't a punishment, it's an exploration. Divinity forgetting itself on purpose, so it could have the experience of finding itself again. I don't think you're guilty of anything. I think you're carrying an old, borrowed shame that was never actually yours. And shame like that only holds its grip because of one final fear underneath it. The fear that keeps almost every human being small and afraid to really live. You think this ends. That's the eighth lie, and it might be the oldest leash ever built. The fear of death doesn't just show up when death is near. It shows up daily in disguise, the safe choice over the bold one, the swallowed truth instead of the spoken one. Plato, the Greek philosopher whose allegory of the cave is still taught over 2,000 years later, described something eerily similar long before the Gnostics put it into their own language. Prisoners chained facing a wall, mistaking shadows for the entirety of existence, afraid to turn around. Across Gnostic thought, Hermetic philosophy, and other hidden traditions, the same pattern repeats. Consciousness doesn't end, it transforms. Death isn't a wall. It's a doorway most people are too afraid to walk through with open eyes. I'm not asking you to blindly believe in any specific afterlife. I'm asking you to notice how much of your life has been quietly shaped by a fear you've never actually verified. Because if that fear loosens, even slightly, it exposes the final lie holding the entire cage together. This is all there is. Matter, bodies, bills, nothing beyond what you can touch, measure, and prove. That's the ninth lie, and it's the one the programming needed you to believe more than any other, because it seals every exit at once. If this really is all there is, none of the other 8 lies even matter. There'd be nothing underneath them to wake up to. But that's the bet the old teachers were willing to make, for thousands of years, at real personal risk. That reality has layers most people never bother looking for. That matter is the shadow, not the source. The world you're touching right now is real, but it isn't the whole story. It's the last page of a much longer book. I've turned this idea over for a long time, from a lot of angles, and I keep landing in the same place. The moment you fully believe this is all there is, you stop looking. And a mind that stops looking is exactly what the program was built to produce. So here's the real question. If that voice narrating your limits was never fully yours, what happens the moment you finally notice it? This is where it changes. Because exposing 9 lies isn't the point. Remembering what's underneath them is. The Gnostics had a word for this, gnosis. Not belief. Not faith. Direct, felt knowing. The instant recognition of something you'd simply forgotten, not something you're being taught for the first time. You didn't need to be convinced you're not separate. Some part of you already knew. You didn't need proof that you're more than your body, that time isn't a countdown, that you're already enough, that you hold real power, that no one is coming to rescue you, that you carry no ancient debt, that death isn't the end, that this isn't all there is. You knew. You just got talked out of it slowly, starting before you could even talk back. Waking up isn't becoming someone new. It's peeling 9 layers of programming off something that was whole the entire time it was buried underneath them. That's not a metaphor to me anymore. That's the most honest way I know how to describe what happened when I stopped believing the story I'd been handed about my own limits. You weren't born broken. You were born encoded. And encoding, unlike a wound, can always be rewritten by the same awareness reading these words right now. Before you took your first breath, something already decided what you'd believe about yourself. I told you that at the start. Here's what I didn't tell you yet. That decision was never final. It was only ever the opening move. Spend the rest of today looking for these 9 lies live in your own head. Separation, body obsession, urgency, unworthiness, powerlessness, waiting on rescue, guilt, fear of ending, and the belief that nothing beyond this exists. Once you can name them, they lose most of their grip. If one of these 9 hit you harder than the rest, tell me which one in the comments. I read every one, and I promise you're not the only person who felt that lie land. You weren't just born into this world. Something tried to write the terms of who you're allowed to be before you ever had a say in it. I think it's time you rewrote a few of those terms yourself.